So I'm going to show you how to start work on the transcoder. Okay, everyone can see this. Okay, so what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go to github.coventry.ac.uk, and you want to go to the main page that we're using for all these things. This is where you get the links to stuff. There's some documentation again in the quick start on how Git works. Okay, so version control. There's an explanation of various things you can do with Git and how you would do it. So there's a reference there for you on how to fork and how to do stuff. So whatever's here in the video, you can follow through, but you can also go from there. We're looking at our first project, which is Transcoder. The projects will always have this sort of format. So this is a 1-week project. So between now and next week. You've got the topics with direct links into the material that we want you to have a look at. So if you need to look at, for example, how values and types work, you can click, it takes you straight in, or you go in your window. There is an explanation of how things work. Okay, so what we're doing is we're actually writing something to convert stuff across, but I'll explain that a bit in a minute. And it will also give you a link to the repository. Okay. Now, explanation of what we're doing first. In cybersecurity or any kind of low-level stuff, it's really useful sometimes to be able to translate things from one form to another. Okay, so let's say, for example, we've got ttt.py, which is the thing that we were messing with earlier, and I can view it like this. But I might want to check because maybe, are they all spaces? Maybe they're not. Maybe some of them are tabs, or maybe I want to find out, what the hex values are, or maybe it's not something that I can look at. It's not a text file, it's a binary. So I can use things like hex dump, the hex. You do hex dump -c for the, capital C for the canonical version. You might recognize this. And what we're seeing is each of these characters, so this is the file, so def multiplier, that was the first line, if you remember. That D is this character here, right? So 64, 65, 66, 20, so on. That space is 20, okay? So D, E, F, space, and then we've got multiplier, bracket, then we've got the letter A, which is 61 here. And you should be able to tell, for example, this first letter is D, and then we've got an E. So 64, 65, yeah, goes up by 1, makes sense. And then F is also the next one up, D, E, F. So you can see those 3 numbers in order. And we should be able to say, well, 65 is E. We should also see that somewhere towards the end. There it is. Okay, so you can see, so it'll be I, E, R, open bracket, and there's the A, 61. Okay, and that views it in that format. There are plenty of times we want to do it in others. So there's another tool that's quite useful that I've linked you to in here, Transcoder, which is XXD. Okay, so XXD will show you stuff in different formats as well. So here you've got another hex display. XXD is quite good because you can use it to show you in binary. So there you go. That's the binary for these things. Oops. Now you can see here you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things on each line, and that's because each of those has to have all of these 8 1s and 0s, and that's the 6 characters here. Okay, so when we're doing hex, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, quite a few. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 and 8. Sorry.
What about bin walk?
Not for this. Okay, so bin walk's very useful for lots of things, but not for what we're doing right now. Anyone that's interested, bin walk is something that allows you to sort of essentially cut apart a binary. So if you've got like cats, let's go, there we go, bin cat. So we have bin walk installed, we don't. So bin walk would let me look inside and see which bits are code, which bits might be the things. It's classic CTF task is to try bin walk on things, and you find that people have tagged like other files on the end or hidden bits inside, or you can chop them up. But no, not for this one. This is much lower level basic stuff. So it's just converting the stuff across. We can also convert things to octal. So we can use hex dump -b, which is a strange letter to use, but there you go. And this is base 8. So again, this is showing the same data in another format. What we want to do is we want to create a program that will run like these programs, but it will show what's put into it in all of the formats. Okay, now we're going to call it Transcoder because that's what we're doing. We're transcoding things from one format into another format. I've given you a bunch of code to start you off, right? And that's the stuff that you get in here. So what are you going to do? The first thing I want you to do is I want you to make your version of this. Okay, now you should be logged in, so you all have access to GitHub Enterprise. You then use this fork button up here, and you can see some people have already been creating forks, the number 3 next to it. Where do we want to put it? Now, you probably won't get this option. I get this option because I'm part of multiple different organizations on Git, but just your username will do. You create a fork, she's got a fork in it. Okay, and now we've got this CSX239, that's me, Transcoder, which is not the same as CUEH Transcoder, which is the one that you got the link to. And what this means is that here I can do whatever I like and it stays separate to the other one. So you will do this as your first thing. Then you're going to clone this. Right now, this is making a copy of the repository. So all of these files and keeping them on our system, local system, so the VM in this case, we can then edit it and we can commit those changes and push them back up. There's a big description of Git and what those sort of basic concepts are, again, on the site, so the links that you've got. But the quick start is this. You copy this, okay? It says here it's going to clone SSH, but I'm going to switch it to use HTTPS. The reason for that is that it's going to be easier for me to demonstrate how it works. What you can do later is, and I'll make a little video for this as we go along because it makes things a bit quicker for you, is you can use the SSH one, and that way you don't have to keep typing in the username and password because you'll have a predefined key that you keep locally, but I'm not going to complicate it for this first session. And then we're going to put that somewhere. So I'm going to go into a new directory and let's make one called, I don't know, call it week 2. I've already got week 2. I'm going to go into week 2 and I'm going to use git clone and then that thing that I copied and pasted. Okay. So off it goes and it puts the stuff in. So you should be able to see Transcoder is there, and here it is. Now we're going to make a virtual environment. We're going to run the tests. We're going to do all the things that we need to do. What I've done is I've given you a make file, and that's also described on the website how these things work. But essentially, if you type make and you're in Z shell and you've got a make file, and then press tab, it will tell you what it can do. Okay. The things that are important here are we can make a virtual environment, and we can make any prerequisites that we need. So make venv runs that for us. Very simple, but it just means it's automated. And then I'm going to activate it. So the same as we always do. So this time it's called venv. So I'm going to put that and activate, and you can see my virtual environment is now activated. And now I need to install a bunch of stuff with pip. If you look inside the requirements thing, I want these wheel, colored, pytest, p.3, but I can just do make prereqs, and what that will do is it will run this command pip install -r requirements.txt, and it will then just download all of them and install them all in one go. Okay, so off it goes. Remember, ignore the wheel issue, not really a problem. So I should be able to do which p.3 do rehash my tab completion, which p.3, yep, which py.test, yep, all fine. Okay, so what else can I do? Well, I can also do make test, and what that's going to do is it's going to run the tests for this. We have 3 tests currently. It's testing hex, octal, and binary. They work. We'll find out what they are in a moment. But you'll also see that they're running from inside a different file. Okay, and that's quite handy. Right. Last thing then, we're actually going to run it now. So the source for this is inside src. The tests are inside tests. The virtual environment's inside venv, so it's quite nice and tidy. So running it from inside source, quite easy. There we go. So it's Transcoder version 0.1 pre-alpha. Input, it's currently any text, so it's just whatever text you feel like. And it shows hex, octal, and binary versions of the same thing. Okay, nice and simple. We can look at the contents of the file, so you can see how it's built. Let me just get the editor back. Week 2, Transcoder, source, transcoder.py. It's got documentation, so if we did the documentation with pdoc, we'd get the documentation out, and that's good. The first one has quite a few more comments in it than the other ones, but that's because I wanted to use this to explain to you what's going on, because you're going to base yours on this. So it's got these 3 things as hex, as octal, as binary, and we have this basic input data. So let's change this to something else. Like that. And then we'll go and run it like we did before. And you can see now we get a different input, and we get different hex, octal, and binary. Okay, so that's running, that's testing. We can run it as many times as we want. We can run the tests. Clearly it works. What is it that you've got to do? Well, what you've got to do is here. So your first task is to look at the code. You have a look through, and you're going to use the code that's there and extend it so that we can now also output ASCII codes. Okay, so rather than displaying just hex, octal, and binary, we're essentially going to display it in base 10. So that's normal, 1 to 10 numbering system that we always use, and we're going to display those character codes as well. So 65 is capital A, 66 is a B, and so on. Okay, now in hex that would have been 41, 42, 43, and in binary it's going to be 1 0 0 0 1 and then 1 0 on the end for the 66 and so on. So we need to add one thing. You already have in the code an example of how to do it as octal, how to do it as binary, how to do it as hex, and the calls to those functions. So you've got a template to go from. So quite straightforward. You can copy and paste, rename, add your stuff. You should also, though, be adding your test cases and your documentation. If you do that, you've got an intermediate task, so something to challenge you a bit more, and that is to have a look at the code below, which uses input, and then use that to have it so that when you run Transcoder, you get to type in whatever you want. And then the last one is to add a similar kind of output that you get with XXD and hexdump. So if you've done programming before, or you're picking it up really fast, then get it to look like this, okay, where each of the characters is aligned. And this is actually kind of useful, because when you've got something like this and you're looking through, you can actually see the format things are in. So 0x is shortcut to say this is in hex, 0O for octal, 0B, and then the plain one here. So this is binary 101. So hex, octal, binary, and decimal. So this is a character code, the ASCII. So 101 is whatever that character is there. Let's have a look. What did I put in? Oh, any text. So here we go. So the first letter A, 41 in hex, 101 in octal, 1 and then a bunch of zeros and a 1 in binary, 65 in ASCII. Okay. Right. There's another link here about F strings with more information, and I'll put that link and the other one I was using earlier up on here as well, so you've got another reference. Everything that you need should be here. Oh, also the download files bit, I've broken the paths, and I meant to fix that this morning, I haven't got around to it. So you copy and paste rather than download. None of them are very big, so if you do need to download them,